Became the authenticity of the Klondike era, which is what the visitors come to see.
This is Ruby's place. It was a brothel.
Max Swackhammer is a local historian.
It's been preserved in place and maintained. And beside it, here's a brand new building being built. Keeping the spirit of the place is what we struggle with.
Swackhammer says it's difficult to be modern and old at the same time.
You want to give the efficiency of the new materials, but you want to be able to keep the feeling and the spirit of the outside look of the streetscape.
Tourists like what they see, the new and especially the old.
Oh, we loved all those wooden houses you see. In France, we don't have that. We only got stone houses.
Like, I think of my father, he would love to be up here for this. It's such a massive part of our history.
Everything in town is geared towards Dawson's history and its tourists.
I'm a school teacher, a history major, and this is part of what I've read about for a long time.
That night on the marge of Lake Labarge, when I cremated San Miguel.
Most visitors say the people of Dawson City have recaptured the Klondike spirit.
It's got a magic.
But those who've been around a while say the people here never lost that spirit.
We're proud of it. We're happy that they left some gold, and we're happy that they found it in the first place.
Eric Sorensen, CBC News, Dawson City, Yukon.
The Colorado Avalanche won hockey's Stanley Cup tonight. Not bad for a team that wasn't even around a year ago. The game against the Florida Panthers ended in dramatic fashion, the only goal coming in overtime.
From the line, Krupp shot, scores! Yui Krupp has scored, and the Colorado Avalanche has won the Stanley Cup.
The Avalanche, which moved to Colorado from Quebec this season, beat Florida in 4 straight games. And that's the news for now. Later on our Almanac, Periscope. It's going to be a big week for Jacques Villeneuve. Now here's Hannah Gartner with the National Magazine.
Sticking with the old ideas, even when they don't work, can be easier than taking on the unknown. That's what one Canadian discovered deep in the countryside of Russia. In the name of Lenin. Hello. If you go to Russia's cities, you find the winners of market reform and the supporters of Boris Yeltsin. But travel to the farming communities and you are in Gennady Zyuganov territory. When Russians vote on Sunday for a new president, the leader of the Communist Party will get the votes of those who have lost out, many of whom can no longer make a living off the land. That brings us to tonight's story about a Canadian named Gillian Kirby. In a documentary we brought you earlier this year, Leslie McKinnon has a rare look at the dying countryside and Kirby's quiet crusade.
The 5-year plan is only the first step in the basic reconstruction along entirely new social lines. The sole purpose of this unparalleled development is to provide a high standard of living for the population of the Soviet Union.
Graveyards, or so Russians call the remains of the collective farms, the junked machinery that spoils the countryside. This is the legacy of collectivization that was supposed to have been the major revolution of socialism. Tolstoy could have written this scene. So little progress after 75 years, after 25 million people were forced to give up their land and live on the collectives. They were meant to be like a big family, pulling together to provide enough food for everyone. But their harvest was shortages, apathy, and poverty. Despite that history, many are fiercely resistant now to change. Nadia Baldina, who spent her life on a collective farm, is representative of many people who feel left behind by land reform in Russia.
None of this private farmer stuff for us. We just want to live on collective farms and be true peasants.
People here are being asked to change so quickly. Imagine if a Canadian farm community had to transform itself into a communist-era collective virtually overnight. That kind of monumental shift is happening here in Sarai at a collective farm called In the Name of Lenin. It's all part of land reform, and it's the toughest sell in the new Russia. The collective farms never even managed to feed the nation, but they somehow took care of everyone. They were like parents, jobs, homes, community. But now they have to go because the Russian government will no longer subsidize them. And the breakup of this one has been presided over by a young Canadian woman.
I felt like I was in a time capsule and had been thrown back 100 years.
Gillian Kirby, 29 years old, majored in Russian studies in college. Absolutely no farming experience. But her Russian is fluent. The main requirement, it seemed, for a project leader to help Russians privatize farmland. So she landed here, 8 hours from Moscow, and a whole universe away from anything she'd ever done before. 4,000 hectares of blasted countryside. It hadn't turned a profit since it was collectivized and given the inspiring title of In the Name of Lenin in 1926. What did you think about your own ability to stick it out?
I thought I should pack my bags, cut my losses, and take off.
She would stay for the next year and a half, working on the daunting project of trying to convert the most archaic and unreformed industry in Russia. It was an undertaking filled with good intentions and Western ideals, in a country where many say reform is happening way too fast.
Oh, close up, zoom, whoa, okay, further away. This is his desk.
Her home movies give a picture of the year and a half she did stick it out. She was the boss of a team of Russians, an economist, a lawyer, and others. Their job was to legally and fairly divide up the huge collective farm into smaller enterprises. She did a lot of just talking to people in the village, people who wanted to become private farmers. Her mandate was to be a facilitator, to help people help themselves become self-sufficient. This particular project, based on others in Russia, was supported by Canadian taxpayers, $2.2 million worth.
It's in our best interest to have the Russian economy stabilized. Otherwise, they're a threat.
Is that how you felt?
That's how I felt when I thought about this job and when I decided to take it. I just thought it was such an interesting time in history right now. We're undoing, what Stalin implemented back in the late 20s and early 30s.
The superiority of farming on a large scale acts as a strong stimulus for the rapid growth of collectivization in the future.
Collectives were at the core of communist dogma. People had starved under the wealthy landlords. Communism pledged that if the peasantry joined together, they would thrive. But both Lenin and later Stalin hated and feared the peasants who were landowners. Little capitalists, Stalin called them, rabid enemies of the socialist state. So collectivization was enforced brutally. Grain was looted and taken to the cities. The resulting famine killed millions. Resistors or anyone who raised a voice were liquidated. Whole villages were relocated and banished to remote regions. Countless numbers were shot and buried in mass graves. In the Name of Lenin Farm, like the others, never lived up to the communist promise of prosperity. In the past, Moscow always gave the orders about what crops to grow, how much milk to produce. But yields were low, the farms were neglected and run down, and the old Soviet Union always had to import grain. Everyone was paid a small state salary, but there was little motivation because other than promotion to management, which depended a lot on party loyalty, there was no route to get ahead.
This is my field, Leslie. 65 hectares of fertile black earth.
But now land reform has offered opportunities. A Russian farmer can stand before his own fields, something that hasn't been possible since Lenin banned private property.
With my own efforts, I'll fix it up.
In 1993, that ban was lifted. It's what Ivan Slatukin always wanted, even though he grew up on the collective farm. In fact, the collective sent him to university, expecting him to come back to the farm. He did, but with new ideas about farming being run like a business.
Они могут со мной поспорить. Они выросли в колхозе.
My parents would disagree with me now. They grew up on the collective farm. In those days, 20 or 30 years ago, they had so much enthusiasm. They sang patriotic songs. They were so happy that they would work for nothing.
He was one of the first to leave the collective farm, and those who stayed behind resented him. Gillian Kirby thought that he was a born self-starter and made him her ally. But he was then viewed as a collaborator, because many thought that she was trying to sabotage the collective farm.
There were all kinds of rumors, you know, that I was a spy.
Really?
Yeah.
A spy?
A spy to collect information and to give to our government. And one of the theories was that we wanted to bring them, you know, to absolutely destroy their agro-industrial complex. And, you know, I kind of thought, well, we got a little late. We got here a little late for that then.
Since reform, village life has become rife with a terrible envy born from years of serfdom. Whether under Tsar or Commissar, individualism is suspect.
Those who want to leave the collective farm are just lazy bums. They don't want to work. They simply don't want to work with the rest of us.
It's not surprising Nadia Baldina feels this way. Her life has become far worse under land reform. Like many, she will vote for the communists this month in hopes of getting the collective back. She still works at the collective, but since it's been privatized, she's become a small shareholder. It makes no difference. She hasn't been paid since December.
Here's where the girls sleep. Olya and Galia. Two of them. Here's where Marina sleeps. There are no blankets.
And you use the coats for blankets.
So she uses this. And here's where Natasha sleeps.
And she uses her coat too as a blanket. Sleeps under the cot.
This is our kitchen. No gas because there's no money. So we haven't cooked on it for 3 months now.
No more fuel for the stove. Yeah.
We cook here on this burner.
Oh, so you have to use the hot plate?
We don't really cook. We just heat stuff.
And this is...
And this is what's left of the bread for the kids' dinner.
Her family doesn't starve, they just don't eat much. There is no variety in their diet. They live on what they can grow, cabbages and potatoes and a bit of milk. Thin cabbage soup is the main meal of the day. There is no comfortable transition for people like this, who have known nothing in their lives but the security of the collective. Her husband, a tractor driver on the old collective, has no source of income. So to buy bread, and almost nothing means more to Russians than bread, Nadia has to beg for credit at the local store.
I have a relative who works in the store. She understands my situation, so I have to go to her and ask for some bread. I owe the store 200,000 rubles.
As humiliating as that is, what worries her more is her children.
They're all on edge. They're all anxious. They don't say anything bad, but I can read it on their faces. They're saying, "What do you want from us, Mom? Feed us first, then we'll behave." They won't say it out loud because I'm their mother. But I can tell.
She is only 38, but her life has made her look older and has given her a commonly felt nostalgia for a glorious past that never was.
Think of the movies. They're walking with hoes, rustling through the hay. They're singing, dancing, having fun. Those who leave the collective farm are lone wolves. But what can they do on their own? I pray for the collective farm, for myself and for my children.
Since Nadia wanted no part of decollectivization, Gillian Kirby never even met her, But this mentality was the biggest obstacle to reform. The sense of entitlement the collective farm had given its members that they were owed a living.
People have become really so apathetic and so resistant to change. And they all told this to me in the beginning. I didn't want to believe it, that, you know, that they have stopped thinking for themselves, and that they work better under directives. And I think it is the mentality. It's going to be the toughest thing to change. I think that if we were to add a dimension to our project, to our model, there'd be some kind of a psychologist working with us.
But it wasn't her job to change hearts and minds. The majority of the collective farm members had voted to privatize, and she dealt mainly with them, and not the opposers. Only the people who wanted her help.
We couldn't be in a position to impose anything, otherwise we would be blamed if it didn't work out. And also, I think reform, you know, if anybody wants to change, whether it's an alcoholic or an overeater, or it's got to come from them.
Gillian Kirby's home life on the farm. As difficult as it was to supervise the farm's breakup, as we'll see, living there was no cakewalk either.
Special moments can surprise you any time of day. Greet them feeling your best with 5-minute Polident for daytime. Its powerful double action leaves dentures minty fresh and totally clean in just 5 minutes. Polident for daytime.
What is Kellogg's Mueslix? Mueslix cereal has home-baked tastes like delicious apple crisp. Mueslix is an abundance of textures, ingredients like crispy flakes of whole grain, flavors of fruit, cascades of nuts, and crunchy granola. And now we bring you Kellogg's new Apple Crisp Mueslix. Kellogg's Mueslix. Wake up to home-baked taste.
Tomorrow on Newswatch, what happens when you get a bill for thousands of dollars for cell phone calls you never made?
You freak out.
Newswatch with Dennis Trudeau. What Montreal is all about.
Welcome to our annual celebration of excellence right here on the CBC.
You've watched them, struggled with them, and cheered them all season long. Now it's time to honor them. The NHL Awards, Wednesday, June 19th on CBC.
Think the local telephone company is saving your business the most money on toll-free 800 and 888 service? Think again. Introducing the Most for Business from Sprint Canada. It's better volume discounts on toll-free service. It's bigger savings should you sign up for 800 and long-distance service, guaranteed. It's a lower bill with detailed reporting. It's about time someone worked harder for your business. Get the most for your business from Sprint Canada. Call 1-888-400-SAVE for details.
I'm not a mother anymore. My child is dead.
I'll take care of you.
She's pushing us all away. You don't want to heal me. You want to own me. Don't pretend to be strong. I can't stay here.
North of 60, Tuesday at 8. Proud, passionate, and defiant, she holds to her roots in an intolerant world. Sahawe, a 5-part miniseries, Tuesday at 9.
After a while, on what she would call in a letter home the farm from hell, Gillian Kirby lost her grounding. The odds seemed impossible. Russians were wondering why the Canadians just didn't give them some equipment instead of the program.
I just felt like it was too little and too late, and this was said by them quite often, by the Russians on this farm. Great, you arrive, you divide us up, and then you leave. What kind of concrete assistance are you really offering?
And then there was where she had to live. Another home movie. The program rented one cottage. She had to share it with her entire staff. As many as 10 people in a space meant for 2.
It's nice for a little while. It's kind of rustic, but then it starts to wear thin.
All together, please. All together.
As time passed, she understood why drinking was such a problem on the collective farm. Sometimes it seemed the only logical response.
Did you worry you might start even drinking too much? I mean, living in these conditions?
Absolutely. Absolutely, you do.
Yeah.
You really do. I was thinking that I'd have to take my liver home in a separate bag with wheels. But again, the interesting thing that I found is that is one's ability to adapt. Because a year and a half ago, I would have never thought that I could live in these conditions.
What was the worst thing about it?
The outhouse.
And what's that like? I mean, we all know what outhouses are, but what about this one?
Well, that's, I mean, to me, it's you know, on the one hand, it's kind of seems strange to talk about it, but on the other hand, it says a lot about how things have totally fallen apart, I think. At the same time as, you know, that there are satellites up in space and, you know, they can fight a nuclear war, they can't even build a normal toilet or, you know, and they can't even afford a decent kind of lifestyle or make it possible for the people in the countryside.
What kept her going was the few relationships she formed with people who wanted to become private farmers once again. The central mechanism of the decollectivization program was an auction. It was an historic event captured on her home movie. Collective members were able to buy the assets of the farm they'd all lived and worked on since childhood. Each collective member had been given shares in the farm according to their position and length of time served. And with these they bid on equipment and livestock. It was the beginning of taking responsibility, the creation right there and then of independent businesses. Nothing could have pleased her more. One of the bidders at the auction was Ivan Slatukin. He bought some tractors. They're prehistoric, but they're his.
Where I have felt satisfied is when I see these young leaders coming forward and starting to repair their equipment the next day after the auction. You know, it's theirs now.
To Nadia Baldina, the auction meant nothing. As just a milkmaid, the few shares she got from the collective farm wouldn't buy much. And to start a new business, you need money.
Do you have any money?
Нет, никаких.
No,
Никаких.
I don't have any money.
Даже ни одного рубля.
Not a single ruble.
No one needed much money on In the Name of Lenin. On the collective farm, tractors could be ordered from Moscow on credit that was never paid. And when the tractors broke down, they simply rusted where they stopped. If any member needed something from the farm, they simply took it. Theft and waste. These ate at the farm, slowly robbing it of its profits. But theft had its uses.
Воровать и воровать надо по-разному.
There is theft and there is theft.
Зачем воровать, когда
Why
можно
steal
прийти, взять
when you
и
can just
пойти?
go and take what you need?
Мне вот корова не доела.
If I needed milk, I would just fill a bottle from the cow and take it home.
Наливала
So do you think the manager would stop me and say, "Where are you taking this?"
и скажет:
No way.
Куда несешь? Он мне не скажет.
He won't punish me for this drop in the
Не
bucket.
скажет. Он за эту крошку.
He knows
Меня
I
не
needed
накажет.
it to
И
feed
я
my
несу.
kids.
Не на пропой, а детей кормить.
After reform, the stealing was supposed to stop. Because property now belonged to someone. But now farmers take turns at night guarding gasoline reserves. And many are afraid of these new private owners, whom they think will be like the landed gentry of pre-revolution, who cruelly abused the peasants.
Один за всех и все за одного.
All for one and one for all.
Будет жизнь.
That's the way life should be.
Фермерство. Это
All
просто
these private farmers.
хотят, чтобы
They want the
крестьяне
peasants to
были-
be slaves. They'll hire us,
Фермер придет, наймет,
we'll
мы
work
пойдем
for
будем
them,
работать
and
у
that's
него.
it. We'll be slaves.
Раб. Будь раб.
The people who are afraid of you, someone like you who wants to own a big farm, they say you want to turn them into slaves and pay them slave wages.
Look, they've been slaves all their lives. They were slaves of their chairman, and they're slaves now. These kinds of things can really piss me off.
For all his bravado, even Ivan is in trouble. Many of Russia's 300,000 new private farmers have gone bankrupt. Despite the Russian government pinning its hopes for land reform on these new landowners, it won't give them any breaks. To borrow money, they face interest rates of 160%.
If things stay the way they are, I'll be forced out of farming in 2 years.
This lack of commitment of the Russian government makes it all the harder for the Canadian program to succeed. The countryside is so backward, so deficient in basic infrastructure such as running water or telephone, let alone fax or computer, that modern land reform may take decades, even generations, to realize.
I was wondering, what do you think of the Canadians' efforts to help people here decollectivize their farms and reorganize?
You know, I'll tell you honestly. And I don't want you to be insulted by this. But it seems to me that it's great that you're helping us, specifically the Canadians. But we have to think for ourselves. You want to help us a lot, but you live in a completely different world than we do. And you see things differently than we do, and you have a completely different mentality.
This is something Gillian learned, and it's partly why she's leaving. Saying goodbye to Ivan and telling him she'd like to return in 5 years to see how he's doing. Despite her hopes for Ivan, she's lost some illusions about just how much a Western-based assistance program can do.
If Canadian officials were to come here and see what was achieved, what would they see? How do they feel about it?
This is the really tough thing, and it has happened, and there are mixed reviews. There aren't, when you look at, I guess to put it this way, the bang for the buck, it's a tough one to justify. It's a tough project to justify, because maybe at the end of all of this, at the end of our reorganization project and $2.5 million, we'll only have affected, 10 new small enterprises.
And Ivan Slatukin is one of them. Till now he's done well, and if he can hang on, he wants to grow organic vegetables for the European market. He still believes that reform is the best thing that could have happened to him. But not for Nadia Baldina. Her life has come down to asking for credit at the local store for bread. For her, and for so many others, land reform has become a dreadful abyss, and the reason so many rural people want to return to communism. Again, the nostalgia.
We need to bring everything back. Maybe I'm too young to understand, but if we bring the Communist Party back, things will be fine again.
But it's unlikely that the collective farms that have been called the biggest welfare system in the world will be revived. There is no way they can be supported economically now. Land reform is the only answer. Even so, the Canadian government is pulling out of this project at In the Name of Lenin, leaving just a small follow-up team. So Gillian is leaving her cottage for the last time, for the train to Moscow and eventually back to Canada. She has had to turn her back on her own dream of undoing Stalin's work.
It is difficult, but at the same time I feel like there isn't anything that I personally can do to affect change now. It's really up to them.
For The National, I'm Leslie McKinnon in Sarai, Russia.
Later this week, we're going to take a look at the differing visions of the two leading candidates in the Russian election. Gennady Zyuganov. He has breathed new life into the Communist Party. Correspondent Don Murray takes a look at why many Russians will vote for Zyuganov and exactly what kind of communism he represents. The rise of Zyuganov and the communists has other Russians nervous, especially those in the media.
They could face a return to the totalitarian regime of the past.
Celine Galipo tells the story of how Russian journalists are openly supporting Boris Yeltsin in the election campaign.
Objectively now, I'm working for Mr. Yeltsin. As journalist, as journalist image maker of Mr. Yeltsin.
But is the media blitz enough to help the Russian president win? Russia at the Crossroads. That's Russia's Choice. An election preview Thursday on the magazine. That's it for the magazine and for me. Until tomorrow night. Stay where you are. Peter Mansbridge will return in a moment with tonight's National Almanac.
The votes are in. Subway's turkey breast sub is a winner, now only $1.99. We're talking about freshly baked bread with thin sliced seasoned turkey and your choice of fresh veggies. You want tomatoes, onions, lettuce, green peppers? Just give us the go-ahead and they're on your turkey breast. Juicy, tasty, it's a landslide. So what are you waiting for? Get the one sandwich that's on everyone's ballot. Subway's 6-inch turkey breast sub. For a limited time, only $1.99.
Don't make things like they used to. Whatever happened to quality?
In my day, we cared about craftsmanship.
How about service?
Dave Lennox founded his heating and cooling company and what was important to customers.
Those things will never go out of style. Trust me.
And the Lennox quality dealer standards make sure you'll get those things from Lennox dealers today.
Of course, you know what I really miss? Those little licorice drops you used to sell.
Lennox, one less thing to worry about.
I'm not a mother anymore. My child is dead.
Take care of him.
She's pushing us all away. You don't want to heal me. You want to own me. Don't pretend to be strong. I can't stay here.
North of 60, Tuesday at 8.
Tomorrow on Newswatch, what happens when you get a bill for thousands of dollars for cell phone calls you never made?
You freak out.
Newswatch with Dennis Trudeau. What Montreal is all about.
It's flea and tick season again. If you were your pet, you'd insist on Avant-Garde flea collars. Avant-Garde's superior flea and tick-killing action works faster and lasts longer. Your pet will be very grateful. Kills fleas faster, protects longer. Available at pet supply retailers.
In Germany, there is no word for gonzo, no word for rad, righteous, or gnarly. And as far as we can tell, no word for whoa. There is, however, a car. Introducing the Audi A4, a stunning achievement in German engineering, and one wicked ride. Dude, the new A4, get ready for the ride of your life.
It's flea and tick season again. If you were your pet, you'd insist on Avant-Garde flea collars. Avant-Garde's superior flea and tick-killing action works faster and lasts longer. Your pet will be very grateful. Kills fleas faster, protects longer. Available at pet supply retailers.
Tonight, our Periscope sets its sights on Quebec. A big event in Montreal this weekend as car racing fans from around the world gather for the Montreal Grand Prix. It's the only Formula One race held in North America, and this year one of the favorites is Canadian Jacques Villeneuve. Check out Villeneuve's official homepage for the latest on his Formula One career. If racing's not your cup of tea, Saturday is opening day for the Montreal Fringe Festival, a showcase of street performance that continues right through the week. The arts also figure big on this week's magazine rack. Canadian Art profiles the life and art of 19th century French-Canadian Osia Leduc. In Two Print, a new art and literature magazine for young Canadians, features tips for the aspiring artist. Business Quarterly looks at privacy and the internet. And this week's Maclean's examines violence on television and its impact on kids. Finally, opening on movie screens this week, Canadian Jim Carrey enters the summer movie season with The Cable Guy.
You mean illegal cable?
Yeah.
Who told you that? What is his name? I want it.
Oh, forget it.
You're offering me a bribe. What you have just done is illegal. And in this state, if convicted, you could be fined up to $5,000 or spend 6 months in a correctional facility.
And that's the National for this Monday night. Local news is next on most of these stations. Our first news tomorrow, the CBC Morning News. Thanks for watching.